Hi, so today we are going to be going through the capital budgeting simulation, and instead of just showing the end results and all of what happened being through the historical financials and everything, I am just going to go through the simulation. I have already gone through it once and recorded my results and recorded what I have chosen. So I'm going to go through the same thing and explain my choices. I'll start out by showing that the revenue by division is pretty basic on what you're gonna see throughout most of the simulation. Operating profit as well. The licensing is gonna be your highest one and should be throughout the process. And then total assets by division, production is actually gonna come up a little bit and be a higher percentage of your total assets. That's pretty standard. You want a lot of assets in production because you want a lot of production out there. So we're going to go ahead and go to decide. And right now we're actually a little bit over the 2010 budget. So we're going to want to take one of these off that is selected. And so new doll film DVD right here is going to stay because of the really high internal rate of return. That's a very high percentage. We're actually going to take off the Match My Doll clothing line because it's got the lower of the IRRs and lower on the profit index and also a longer payback period. So we're going to stick with these three on the first year. And as you can see, the first year is not wildly different than the second because we just did 3 investments. Everything is roughly the same, about almost 50% here on total assets for production. So again, we're going to want to get that up. And then on the project updates, our accessory line performed in line with expectations, so we stayed right there. The new Northeast retail operations generated more revenue than expected, so that's good, and it was profitable right away. The film was released on schedule and was very successful, and so we exceeded those of our previous films and did very well. So we're going to move into the next year. On this one, there are 2 that go really well together. We're going to do the Dolls of the World initiative along with a new East Coast distribution facility, because if you expand the clientele base through the Dolls of the World, then you're going to need distribution in more areas than what we have now. So these go well together, and actually later on in the simulation there is a project dealing with moving or adding production into Asia, and so if you start this Dolls of the World initiative now, is helpful later on. So both of these have decent internal rate of returns. We're also going to select the Tween book series because it has the highest internal rate of return with a decently low payback period. So we're going to start making money on that relatively soon. And we're also going to do, actually that's going to be it on that one. So we're just going to do 3 again. And so as you can see here, our actual projection, or our actual earnings were a lot higher than our forecast, and so that's a good thing. We did better than what we thought we would, and as you can see, this is still where it should be here, and we're actually getting a little higher on retail, and I think that's due to the expansion in the distribution facility. So that is also perfectly fine. We're going to go to the next year, and we are going to start off with the doll video game because of the very high internal rate of return. I've found that anytime you see one that is this high, almost like an outlier comparative to the rest of them, you want to choose that because that's going to make you the money that you want. So next we're going to do the Grow With Me doll line. It's got a pretty high internal rate of return and a profit index of 1.62, which relates well with the net present value. And we're going to do this as well. If you're in production and everything is going to increase, then you need to make sure that your equipment is up to par with what you are doing. And then we're going to do one of these acquisitions here. And I'm going to go with the children's magazine because it has a lower lifetime projected cost as well as a lower payback period and a higher profit index than the toy manufacturer. So we're going to select that. And then here's what I was talking about earlier in the expansion to Asia, because we did that Dolls of the World initiative that increases customer base in more countries. So we're going to go ahead and expand that, and we're going to hit submit. So we were on revenue this year, we were higher than forecasted. Operating income and net income were a little bit lower, but pretty close there, so that's not bad. We see that on the Grow With Me doll line, unexpected problems caused first year revenues to be cut short, but that's just in that first year, so we'll expect to see that increase as the project matures. The new machinery performed as expected, so we'll be looking forward to better equipment with the manufacturing aspect. Expenditures were a little higher on the mail order catalog, but we are looking to speed up penetration in Japan and China, which I think will happen in the coming years. And these both performed well, but it's still expected to contribute positively. So we're going to move on to the next year. So again, we see two projects here with or actually three, with a very high internal rate of return. So we're going to select Toddler's Music CD Series, Bookstore Cafe Writers Club, and Virtual Doll Community. These two right here, Toddler's Music CD and Virtual Doll Community, have to do with licensing, and you want to put a lot of effort into your licensing because that's where you want a lot of profit to come from that area. So we're going to stick with that, and we're also going to update our supplier software system because again, when you increase anything, you have to keep updating your systems and equipment and all that to keep up with the expansion. And then kind of like with Asia, we're going to do the expansion to England because originally we chose the Dolls of the World initiative, and these relate well together. So again, kind of like that second year, our actual profits were a lot higher than our forecast. Revenue, income, and net income were all a lot higher, which is great. Our operating profit by division is becoming a little more diversified, so that's good. We have our hand in multiple buckets here. And then total assets by division is pretty close to what it should be. We'd like to get production a little higher, but it's fine if retail is high as well because of our expansions in the new markets. So now we're going to move on to the last year. Again, we see one outlier here at 97% internal rate of return, the Young Authors book series, so we're going to select that. It's got a low payback period and a very high profit index, so that's a go-to. We're also going to select this, dollhouses with miniature dolls, because that adds to our overall production and will increase our assets in the production segment as well as retail sales. The design your own doll is another licensing opportunity we have, but we do not have sufficient funds, so we will not be doing that. That's going to be a project in the future, although the simulation only goes through these few years. So that's going to be about it for that. We're just going to select 2 on that last one. So we reached a company APV of 611, which isn't great, but it's a lot higher than what we started with at 345. So we'll go through and look at our financial statements. If you come down here, you see steady increases after this first year. We picked some big projects in the first year, so that declined slightly, but then greatly increased all the way up through the current. If we go down here, total net assets is increasing as well. This is good. We started high, went back down, and now we are coming up and we are above what we started with. And this total liabilities and stockholders' equity followed the same trend as net assets and decreased at first and then rose to higher than what we had at the beginning. So we'll go look at our project updates. As you can see, I already walked through which projects I chose and why, and so this section is not entirely needed right now because we already covered all that. Go to our cash flow statement. We're going to look at the entire company, and as you can see right here, depreciation has increased, which is actually a good thing. You're acquiring more assets, you have more of a depreciated buildup. Pretty much all of our categories that you want to increase are increasing. Our cash flow from operations is increasing, our cash flow from investments increasing, and our cash flow from financing, same thing. Our ending cash balance, which is pretty much the bottom line of deciding if you're doing well, if you have good liquid assets, is increasing as well. A lot higher projected than what we started with. So that's all good. That's about it. So thank you for watching.